Thank you so much for listening to Breadwinning Mums. We really appreciate your continued support over the last year, and we're happy to announce that we have published the Breadwinning Mums book. Yay! This book is based on the conversations from the Breadwinning Mums Season 1 episodes. It highlights the candid journeys of each mums, as well as a golden nugget of wisdom from their life's lessons. Now is the perfect time to give the gift of the Breadwinning Mums book to the special mums in your life or to yourself. No matter where you are in life, I'm sure the practical tips within the Breadwinning Mums book will help you take your lives just a little bit further. Limited copies available, so order yours now at breadwinningmums.com. That's breadwinningmums.com. Coming up next on the Breadwinning Mums.
Probably around a certain age of the children, there was a challenge. And I think back then it was a case of communicating the challenges.
Yeah.
I think if you don't communicate, never assume anything.
Yeah.
And so it's about communicating. But you know what, Jane, if you don't act on what both parties are saying, what they're communicating to each other, then there's just, why bother even doing it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Breadwinning Mums podcast. This is a place where we debunk the myths of working mums, cheer each other on, and show the world that it's okay to be a mum and still pursue excellence in your chosen area of expertise. Today we're chatting with Tanya Sale, a fellow breadwinning mum with 2 children. Tanya is the CEO and co-founder of Outsource Financial. She shared with us her journey of playing professional sports, finding a different career in banking due to injury, and starting out her own business. Here we go with Tanya Sale. Hello, Tanya.
Hello, Jane.
How are you going?
I'm going extremely well, and yourself?
I'm really, really well, thank you.
Good to hear.
I know that you're a very busy person, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, mate. Everyone's busy.
Yeah, well, and especially you.
Especially me.
Yeah.
True words were never spoken.
So obviously we've known each other for a very long time, but for those who are listening, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Of course, my name's Tanya Sale. I'm the CEO of Outsource Financial. Outsource Financial is one of the largest independent mortgage aggregators in Australia. My background and I'm the founder, one of the founders. The other founder is Andrea Tussis. Only female-owned mortgage aggregator in Australia. My background is very much banking and finance.
Yeah.
Started off many years ago. I'm Queensland born and bred, very proud of my Queenslanders, but living in Sydney, of course, for the last 23 years. So I may be living in Sydney, Jane, but I'm a
But you're still
through. So I have a very long history in the finance world. overall. I've built an aggregation for another corporation prior. I've been in the third party aggregation for a couple of the one of the big banks, and helped, I guess, them create the third party division of that institute. But overall, just, virtually all my life, born and bred into the banking and finance world.
Oh, really? So both of your parents were in the financial
Oh,
services
no,
industry?
definitely not. No, just meaning me. I've just loved.
Yeah.
I've been in the finance world, oh God, since 17.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I know it all across the spectrum. I've had
Yep.
the greatest pleasure of being able to be involved in some shape or form in the changes that's happened in the lending space over the years. And which links into, I guess, the wealth side as well, and the accounting side.
Okay,
Especially,
perfect.
yeah. So that's just a snapshot. I don't want to bore everyone with my whole history. It's fun.
Never a dull moment with you. I'd like to go back to the young Tanya. What was the young Tanya like?
Oh, the young Tanya, a bit of a sports fanatic, still is. Bit of a rap bag, I think you would say.
Really?
So just very passionate about things. The young Tanya really just loved playing sport, until one day one of the bankies tapped me on the shoulder, or my father actually tapped me on the shoulder and advised me that, playing sport, no matter what level, is never going to pay, especially back then. Remember, back then, women's sport, it was just unheard of in regard to the professional side of things. It was just never going to cut it, never going to pay the bills. Hence, pinned my ears back a bit and just dedicated myself to having a career. And this is why the banks have been so important for me, because back then the bank that I was working for really supported me in, being able to play the sport that I loved. But also then when I said, okay, I understand that there's a career here, they really supported me, and they paid for my higher education in regard to, and so I can't thank them enough. Back then, and even getting a position in a bank back then. I was speaking on another podcast previously. Like back then, the banks, everybody wanted to work for a bank, and it was really, really hard to get into because it was just so popular. So I was very lucky that I got into a situation where I got a position in the bank and was able to work myself all the way through it in many different divisions. So I was very skilled overall, which was a bonus for me going forward in my life in general.
Yep. Okay, so you're probably the best person for me to ask this question then. What do you think would be the key areas of concern that has led us to the Royal Commission into the banking and financial services industry?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, I guess I have to be very careful here, don't I? The Royal Commission was, I guess, something that had to happen. I believe the banks were just, having the monopoly big time, and just there was really no management oversight when you think about it.
Do you think there was no management oversight, or the whole system was just set up that way to really further the shareholder mentality?
Oh, look, definitely. But that just links into management oversight as well, because if there was oversight on a high level from the regulators, they would never allow that type of behaviour to go down that path. So when I say management oversight, I probably should say regulatory oversight.
Yes. Yep.
Forget the management oversight. So yes, and that's why the consumer back then was the one really paying the price, and it became out of control.
Yep.
hence the Royal Commission happened.
Yeah.
And banks were called to front to say this is not going to be accepted any longer. And it wasn't. Things have changed a lot. I can see things are changing a lot. Well, I can tell you now in our industry, like for the mortgage broking industry, unfortunately got thrown under the bus in this Royal Commission. And the Royal Commission was never about us or that industry. It was purely should have been about the banks. And so a wider spectrum all got bundled in to this Royal Commission. And the financial planning, the wealth side, you know, that's unfortunately been absolutely hammered over the years. And now you see yourselves in the wealth side, like the number of financial advisors or planners, the numbers are, I've never seen the numbers ever like this my whole entire life. And it's a very sad story.
Yeah. Well, it's swimming back the other way with Michelle Levy's review. So we'll see. But sometimes I feel like that's going too far the other way. So let's see if we can reach a nice balance.
And that's where it's got to happen in your industry. When I say not just your industry, I'm talking about the wealth industry in general, the balance. There's never seems to be a balance in that industry. You know, there's people in your industry, and I believe they're standing up now, but when the mortgage broking industry got thrown underneath the bus, we all joined together, banded together, and we were all singing from the same page.
Yeah.
Other industries really have to take a good look on how we acted and reacted to what happened to our industry. We're a very strong industry. We're growing at a massive rate. 70% of nearly all mortgages in Australia now done through a mortgage broker or third party. And at the financial planning side, you were so strong. But when the time came, unfortunately, you were fractured. And I see that's where now you've got a lot of work to do to get it back to even on a percentage of what it was, because it was a thriving industry that's just gone down the toilet, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Well, for most of us that are still in the industry, I think it's a wonderful place to be in, because we're all doing the right thing anyway, even before the Royal Commission. So it's just a continuation of what we were doing. But I want to...
Sorry, one more thing, Jane. It really, Australians need financial
exactly.
planners. They need the wealth side so much. So it's great, exactly what you said. It's a great industry, and it would be fantastic to see it turn around and keep on going up and up and up.
So I want to go back to that young Tanya. So did you always know that you were going to be a career person, or were you always into sports? Did you want to be a professional athlete?
I did want to be a professional athlete in some shape or form. I never thought I'd have a career like I have, that's for sure. And I say again, I was very lucky that I got into a bank when I did at that young age. And then one of the position I got into was, you know, you look back now and you have the biggest laugh. And I told this story the other day. My first position in a bank was as a personal assistant, you know, equivalent to an executive assistant. I was probably the worst executive PA you've ever seen in Australia. How that poor fellow put up for me for so long. But he was the one that identified my skill sets and my talent. I was a real people's person. To this day, I still am.
Yeah.
And he knew I was never going to cut it being his PA or anyone's PA.
So you're too bossy to be a PA.
Oh, no, I was too busy having a chat to everyone, Jane, you know. It just wasn't me. But the thing is, instead of him moving me on and losing my job, he actually got me into branch land in the bank, and that's then
perfect.
I just learned. So
that's great. What sport did you play?
I played women's touch football.
Oh, no way.
Nice. I was also playing, not back then, but when it happened, I was part of the inaugural. Now, don't even ask me why I got into rugby union, because I didn't really like rugby union that much. I'm a big big NRL fan.
Yeah.
I got conned into some of my crazy sports mates that said, we've been asked to get a bunch of athletes together
Yeah.
and field an inaugural women's rugby union.
Oh,
This
wow.
was in Brisbane in Queensland.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did.
Yeah.
Played it for a few years until one of those big forwards ended up catching me, and it really hurt, and
Yeah.
broke a rib, and I went,
Oh, wow.
I'm not doing this
Was
again.
was that the transition? I was going to ask, was it hard to transition from, almost full on sports professional career into more of a traditional
It
banking?
probably would have. I think that really got in my head that I need to be career focused.
Mm.
I was starting to be career focused prior to that, but only a little bit. But
Yeah.
that really, really put the dampers on me, because the doctor said to me, if I was going to continue to play that kind of full on
Contact
sport, and you know the size of me, I'm only 5'4", I may have been fit, but
Yeah.
coming against one of those rugby union women forwards ain't a pretty look. Then because the rib was up near, if I did it again, it would have splintered and maybe gone into my heart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's no way I was going to risk that happening. So I stuck with my touch footy, club level and state level and all that.
Okay. All right. What about being a mum? Did you always know that you were going to be a mum?
No, I didn't. I had no intentions or desire to be a mum. But I can tell you one thing, when I was and is a mum, it was just the most beautiful thing ever. I actually loved being a mum. I really did. I get so much satisfaction. Words, I mean, you're a mum. You would know. And there's a lot of mums out there. They would know what I'm saying, that they really probably can't put it into words. You just get this overwhelming feeling in one's body and brain that, you just don't experience.
Yeah, it fully consumes you. It transforms you.
It really does.
I think as a person.
We're nurturers. So that takes over everything that you do. I used to go home, and I want to make sure I went home, because at that time, when the kids were little, I was starting off outsource financial.
Yeah. Okay. How old were the kids?
Sorry?
How old were the kids when you started outsource?
I think then, when I was starting, I have to think. I think about maybe 5 or 6.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So littlies.
Yeah, they were littlies. They were littlies. And I mean, so I was very conscious of that too. I didn't want to be one of these mums or whatever, just one of these parents that all I did is work, and the children really only ever had one parent instead of 2. So I was very conscious of, going home, trying to go make sure we had a family dinner, make sure I was, reading them stories and making them laugh and twisting the stories to something silly.
Be present.
Be present. And then after that, though, I would go straight back into work. I mean,
after the kids are tucked in bed.
Working.
Yeah.
So it was full on. That's it, full on. It was not a 9-to-5 role ever. You're just working long hours. And there's a lot of mums out there and parents out there that could really relate to that.
Yeah, totally. I think juggling work and life demands is very tricky, especially with young kids. But juggling work and life demands while you're starting something, and especially outsource has grown into something that is, like a contender in the aggregation business. How did you juggle all that?
Oh, you know what? And this I say, you have to have support, no matter what you are, who you are, whatever. If you do not have those support mechanisms in place around you, you won't be able to manage it.
Mm.
You really won't. I was lucky enough that I have a very supporting partner that was a lot stay at home. But we also
Oh,
had, yeah, kind of stay at home, but working is still, but not full time like I was. But in
yeah.
saying that too, having two young kids,
Mm.
this is where our friends came into. A couple of our friends was just so supportive.
Mm.
It was unbelievable because I didn't. My family's not here.
Yeah.
Um, they're
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Because they're in Brisbane, Queensland.
Oh yeah, my dad died when I was around about 29, 30. So I didn't have my
Oh, sorry to
dad.
hear that.
No, you're right. And my mum as well later on. But so I didn't have that family that
Mm.
everyone else had. So
Yeah.
my family became my friends
Your
and
friends, yeah.
partner, of course. So if I didn't have them, I honestly believe, Jane, I don't know what
Yeah.
would have happened, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Would the outsource have grown to the size
Yeah.
it's grown to today?
Yeah.
Just lucky as well that on the business level, I've got one of the best business partners that it could ever be, and
You
that's a rarity.
complement each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a rarity because when you go into partnership, in business partnership with someone,
Mm.
you hear all these horrible stories. You really do.
Mm.
That
Mm.
hasn't been the case at Outsource Financial, and I put that down to maybe being part of the success
Mm.
because the business relationship is just so strong and good and supportive. So
Yeah.
all through then, and then Andrea was around. That she's my business partner. With she's one of my friends that also, what I say, that was helping.
Mm.
The
Mm.
support mechanisms around the children for
Mm.
myself and my partner. Yeah,
Yeah.
if
That's
you don't
great.
have that, mate, it'd be tough.
Yeah. How did you meet Andrea?
Through CBA,
Oh,
Commonwealth Bank.
you were working together?
No, well, she was working at Commonwealth Bank. I was in a different division, but then Andrea left the Commonwealth Bank and decided to be a mortgage broker.
Okay.
And so she went to an aggregator. Back then it was called Law Fund. And part of my portfolio when I was at CBA third party was being the relationship type management of some of the aggregators, and one of those aggregators was Law Fund. Bingo.
Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
Andrea, and quite a few of the brokers that followed me to this day. It's out
That's
outsourced.
excellent.
So
Yep.
yeah, so it's gone
Okay.
back. Our friendship and business relationship has gone back probably 20 odd years.
Yeah. Okay. And so did you reach out to her
Yeah.
to co-found Outsource?
Yes, I did. Yes, I
Why
did.
Andrea?
I think the industry that knows me would know and knew that if I was ever going to branch out and build my own aggregation group, I was always going to ask Andrea Tassis to
Yeah.
be part of it. Now, back then, probably it's a bit to this day, but back then Andrea was, conservative in regard to, just everything, just conservative with the lending to make sure everything was spot on. But what she did have, well, she's the hardest worker I've ever seen. And her ethics, her work ethics and her ethics was something that, we became friends. We were mates. And when I wanted to do this, I thought, oh no, I have to sit down with her to try and convince her to say, come on, mate, let's do it. So I rang her one day and I said, hey, Andrea, do you want to catch up? I've got a really good idea I want to run past you. Yeah, sure, Tan. So we rock up to a little cafe in Norton Street, Leichhardt, and I sit down and I go, look, I'm going to come up with this great idea. She was probably used to me coming up with these wild ideas, but I've got this great idea and I just want to know if you want to be part of it. So I said, don't say anything, just think it through, go home and whatever. So I just said, I really want to build my own aggregation because I want to do it the way it should be done. And I said, and I would want you to be part of it, one of the co-founders, you and I. Anyway,
Yeah.
I thought she'd go, oh, God, I don't know about that. It's pretty risky, whatever.
Yeah.
And it went silent.
Yeah.
So I went, oh, no, she's just going to say, look, no,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
She got,
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day, Jane. She got up, she smashed her hand on the table and she went, I'm in, and everyone around there, what's going on here? And that's how our outsource started. That's where it began. And to this day, we still laugh about it.
Yeah.
So I said, you didn't even have to think about it. She went, what'd she say? Something, I know which horse to back. So she always says now, she goes, I back the right horse, blah, 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 jokingly. And from that day on, we built outsource to what it is today and what it will be in the future.
So you mentioned before you wanted to build an aggregator the way it should be. How should it be? What's the ideal aggregator in your mind?
The ideal aggregator is one that you would look at. We call them our members. So, for one of this podcast, the mortgage brokers. So we treat and should treat every member as our business partner. This is not a one-way street. It's not an aggregator putting on a mortgage broker, sitting back, getting a clip, getting a percentage of the commission and just saying, thanks for joining, catch you later, hope you go well. But never wants to be like a clearinghouse. We are not a clearinghouse. I never wanted to be a clearinghouse, never be a clearinghouse. It's about actually forming a really strong business relationship with the mortgage broker, with them.
Yeah.
They're our business partners. And I also wanted to put support mechanisms and resources into that as well. And not just taking a clip. It's not about the clip. It's about we actually care. We really, really care. And that's what I wanted to build an aggregator on, that we're all in this together. All of us. The success of outsource has come from the success of our mortgage brokers, our members. And the big thing for us too is the training and education. We wanted to, assist our members in growing, but then take off some of that workload of the struggles that when you do grow. Hence, that's why our mentoring program was born. Our
continue to nurture.
And so we're working with our members on a day-to-day basis. And that's just one of the differences that we really wanted to make. And we wanted to change the way lending was done in Australia. We wanted the mortgage broker to become the educator for the consumer, to educate them in the transaction and just not do the transaction.
Yeah.
And that became a major part of outsource. And that's a big part of the growth. Our members, our mortgage brokers, they take it quite seriously and passionately about, jumping on our journey and educating the consumer. So
that's excellent.
So just things like that. And we just don't want to be a clearinghouse.
Yep. So I think we started our business about the same time. Outsource is about 14, 15 years. Is that right?
13 years.
13 years. How has the first 10 years been like, and how did it affect your family life?
Oh, that's another good question. So the first 10 years, the first 5 years was, actually it still is today, full on. But for the first 5 years, because remember the kids were little, they were really small, so they had their wants and needs as well. So I had to find a really strong balance, and that became challenging, Jane. I won't deny it. It became very challenging. That outsource virtually was my third child.
Yep.
So I had to put the time, and all these other things in building, because outsource was growing very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So you just have to juggle. I just had to make sure on the weekends that I was very present.
Mm.
That if, my son, even though I was flat out and I was probably stressed and it was full on, that, if my son's saying, come on, mama, I want to go, can you take me to the park? I want to play cricket. The last thing I probably wanted to do is go to the park and play cricket. But then part of it was the best thing I ever did was go to the park and play cricket. Or take him to the beach, because we live at the beach. And I'd say, okay, let's go for an hour. And after 3 or 4 hours of diving in to try and drag him out of the water, saying, come on, let's go home. Or then with my daughter, going to the dance classes. And then all of a sudden, she got shy, so I had to be involved in the dance classes, dancing with her. So little things like that, that would have meant and mean a lot to them.
To them.
Yeah.
In the moment. Yeah.
But it was very challenging. I make no doubt about it. Even, and outsource doesn't stop growing. It's still growing up.
Yeah.
Children still growing up.
One of the reasons why I started this podcast was to basically soothe my mum's guilt when I leave the kids at home, right?
Right.
Are there any certain tips or strategies that you used back then when the kids were still small and really wanted and needing of you, like physically as well? Was there any specific things that you told yourself when you have that mum's guilt?
Oh, look, there'd probably be better mums out there than me in this situation. All I can think of is that I always kept on thinking, like, with my dad. Like, my dad worked full time as well, and I mean, not like this situation, of course, but back then, my dad, no matter how busy he was with his job, he made things fun. And he was present as much as he could be, but when he was present, they're the things I remember.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I took into motherhood and being a working mum is that I'll never forget my childhood on a Friday night when we used to have a talent night. My sister and I, we would have to come up, whether we sing or dance, whatever, and my dad was the judge. Little things like that, like even at Easter, like with the kids. I remember too, my dad used to build these little boxes with hay type thing in, and when you woke up on Easter morning, there was the Easter eggs there, and then there was the Easter egg hunt. Little things like that. The little things make the big things. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, so, it's to highlight those little moments, but
it's the little moments that's going to have such a major impact. On them. That's one thing I think I hopefully did quite well.
Yeah.
We did quite well.
Being a working woman in Australia is such a privilege. I think we live in a society where it's accepted and we are encouraged to live our best self. But there is still a little bit of a stigma around stay-at-home dads, even in the current generation. So going back to a couple of years back, did your partner ever have to deal with this stigma in his personal headspace?
No,
what are your takes on that?
Not really. I think how you position it. You're right. Because you know what, it's that old, the old style blokey. Oh, come on, mate. What are you? What are you, a wuss or something? You some whatever. That's going. I believe slowly. But even in the industries overall, I think bit by bit it's going, because there would have been some leaders, some front leaders in that space with the men. There really would have been. And it would have been interesting to ask them how they felt. To tell you the truth, the ones that were leading the way. But I think there's a long journey for that side. Just like us women, we've had a long journey. I think that component is going to be a long journey to get rid of that stigma. Yes, it's still
Yeah.
there in some shape or form, but
Yeah.
I think it's getting better. So, the ones that really don't give a flying hoot what other people think. It's about what's best for their family and their situation. So I admire them, and I think good on you for not, who cares what society thinks or some part of society thinks. It's what's going to impact you and your family. And that's what you do it for, you and your family, nobody else.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what's life for you like right now?
Hectic. My life hasn't changed. It's probably gotten busier and busier. But in saying that, I still have a beautiful balance. I'm a big hiker these days. So what I do, I make sure I have plenty of Tanya time and family time or whatever time. So I go hiking a lot with my partner. I travel. So if I travel, I'm traveling a lot with outsource, then I'll tack on a couple of days in wherever I am, and we'll go for a hike in that situation. But outsource, outsource is still growing, Jane. I mean, it's not a baby. It's not even a teenager anymore. It's growing right up, and it's growing into something that is really, really special. So again, we stick to what we built this company for. But yeah, look, life's hectic, but I love it. I love it. But I do have the balance. I do have a balance, which I think is very important, because you've got to have, you time.
Yeah.
In a situation like this, and don't feel guilty about it, because we need you time.
Yeah. What do you do other than hiking for you?
I go to the stadium. I mean, I'm a member of the stadium Allianz. I live in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, and there's this big Allianz Stadium. But what they've built there is the fantastic gym, but it's got ice baths, steam rooms, and all that. So I go there regularly, and
nice.
I love having ice baths, which just
you
want
wakes
to feel
you up.
alive. You get in that ice bath for a couple of minutes and jump out. You feel like $1 million. It's unreal.
Yeah.
So I do that. A lot of exercise. I love it.
Yeah. Okay, great. So for anyone who's ever been with a partner for more than a week, I think they know how hard it is, right, to keep a partnership going. Over the past decade or so, with the kids that you have, with outsource that you're raising, has there ever been a moment where you were really challenged on a personal basis? And without going into the specifics, maybe if you could share what you learned through it and how you were able to go past through it as a couple.
Yeah. Look, probably around a certain age of the children, there was a challenge. And I think back then it was a case of communicating the challenges.
Yeah.
I think if you don't communicate, never assume anything.
Yeah.
And then when it got to a situation, we went, wow, okay. And so it's about communicating. But you know what, Jane, if you don't act on what both parties are saying, what they're communicating to each other, then there's just, why bother even doing it? But I think communication, one thing that I learned, and there's only been that one, the challenge, with the certain age of the children, it was just full on, they were getting to a certain age, and they weren't
Teenager.
Pleasant. They weren't pleasant little critters. And you just can't turn your back and go, oh, I'll let you do it, or I'll let you do it. It's not. It's a joint situation, and you've got to communicate with each other, especially in that situation. Like teenagers, you would know. Oh my goodness, everyone out there would know. And the ones that don't know and haven't had to go through your teenagers being whatever they are, you may have the perfect teenagers. I admire and think, how lucky are you? but the majority of us out there
Yeah.
are going through this. And
Yeah.
that's the testing time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's but other than that, got through that. Happy days, happy life.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you could go back to that young Tanya, the 17-year-old who's just about to start her job in the banks, knowing all of the wealth of knowledge that you know now, what advice would you give that young Tanya?
Oh, gee, remember that young Tanya was a little bit of a rat bag, Jane. What I would give that young Tanya to listen, probably listen a bit more. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that's that one word. You know, when you're young, you're reckless. You think, you just, you don't listen. But I think in some situations back then, if I would just stop, I would have stopped and just listened. I think that it would have helped me a lot in my young Tanya.
Yeah.
So that's why now and remember, I'm hyperactive at the best of times. So even now, when I'm in meetings and everything, that I really have to concentrate, really strong, get distracted. But the young Tanya, attention span was of an ant. The older Tanya is probably still the attention span of an ant, but I've now monitored it and managed that I can actually do it. And one of the big things was listening.
Yeah.
Because if you don't listen, you miss so much.
Yeah.
Or you
And
miss
it links back to that communication skill, because to communicate better, you need to listen better as well.
Correct. So that would be it for me, Jane.
Awesome. All right. And last question is, what's your alpha mom song? So if you have a lot of things going on at outsource, your family really needs you and you don't feel well yourself, what one song do you play on the backside of your mental mind to make it through the week?
Oh, wow. That's another good question. One song I really love is Fireworks from Katy Perry.
Oh, yes,
Really
that's
gets
my
me
song
pumping.
too.
Is it your song
Yeah,
too?
it is.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go. It really gets me pumping. I just love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So yes, Katy Perry, Fireworks.
Okay, awesome. All right, Tanya, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks,
hopefully
Jane.
I get to see you very soon. Spectacular.
Yes, that'll be fun as well. Thanks, Jane,
Okay,
and thanks for the opportunity.
thank you.
Thanks,
See you
Jane.
then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This episode of Breadwinning Mums was produced by Jane Lim. Our theme music was produced by Sam McNally, and we recorded this episode on the lens of Darug people who have passed their parenting story for generations, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present and thank them for caring for country. Connect with us through LinkedIn at Breadwinning Mums. Until next time.